Castro back for lucky number chapter 13 of my book, Flowerantha. Baby's gonna sit this one and the next one out, but she will be back to join us for a very special location for chapters 15 and 16. So let's get right into chapter 13. Mash opened his eyes to find himself in a small, square room that had a stone staircase leading up to the door. Unlike the smooth bricks in the castle, these walls were bumpy, like the cave he had slept in days earlier. He touched the tender spot on the side of his head where Bushroll had slugged him. He stood, staggered up the steps, and tried the door. Locked, of course. "Nautica, if you can hear me, send help." There was only a dim light in his cell, so he could not tell what time of day it was. His stomach rumbled. "I wish for a loaf of bread." He held out his hand, but only a puff of smoke appeared. He tried again anyway. "I wish for the key to this room." A smaller, more pitiful puff of smoke appeared in his hand this time. He walked back down the stairs and slumped on the floor. He surveyed the damage to his body. His knee was covered in dried blood, but besides that minor injury and his stretched earlobe, he didn't seem to have any broken bones. He found a small pile of stones on the floor and threw them against the wall, one by one, to pass the time. He was surprised when he heard a similar sound come from the other side of the wall. "Bushroll?" "You are lucky there's a wall between us, Russet," came Bushroll's muffled reply. "Bushroll, we are going after the monster knight, not your uncle. I'm sorry he's gone. Truly, but he did destroy my home." "I do not want to hear it." Mash could hear the fury in his voice. There was a faint bang on the wall, and Bushroll swore in Floweranthan. "Gaff!" "What was that?" "It was me punching your face." Mash suppressed a laugh in spite of himself. "If we get out of here alive, we are done. You stay out of my sight, or I will kill you. Bushroll, do not speak to me again unless you have a plan." "What if you come up with a plan?" "Just hope you come up with one first." Mash picked up all the stones in one fistful and threw them on the opposite wall instead, harder this time. It was the second time in his life he felt trapped, but this was unlike the safe haven of the waterfall cave, where he had spent a night before this all began. He lay down on his side and cradled his stomach, which had rumbled again. He tried to sleep, but his mind was racing. He kept picturing Bushroll on the back of the monster knight that day his home was attacked. In one scenario, Mash pulled Bushroll off of the monster knight himself. In another scenario, Bushroll helped Mash and his father, and the monster knight never destroyed the house at all. And in yet another scenario, the two of them were strangers, just as Bushroll's uncle and Mash had been. The same exact thing happened. Bushroll was thrown from the monster knight, crashed into the roof, and landed dead on the ground. When Mash pictured Bushroll on the ground instead of his uncle, he became nauseated. Shivering with hunger and weakness, he drifted to sleep. He woke with a start when the door to his cell creaked open and slammed back shut before he could react. A plate of food sat on the floor just up inside his room. Mash crawled to the plate on his hands and knees. He picked up the bread, which was hard and stale, but he ate it anyway. The yellow cheese was discolored darker on one side. Mash tore it off and ate the good part. Still hungry, he ate the hard, darker colored part too. With a little more strength now, he paced the room. He inspected every crevice for a way out. He couldn't sit any longer without trying to escape. Mash patted his shorts pocket. The knife he had wished for the previous day was gone. Whether it had disappeared or someone had taken it, he didn't know. Picking up one of the bigger rocks, which was shaped like a lopsided arrowhead, Mash jammed the rock in every crack around the door, trying to jimmy it open. It wasn't working, but it gave him something to do. Without much nourishment in hours, Mash grew tired again. He leaned his back against the wall that divided his cell and Bushroll's and sank down, drawing his knees up to his chest. He heard a rhythmic sound coming from the other side of the wall. Slap, 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 pause. Slap, 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 pause. It sounded like Bushroll was pacing as his sandals hit the floor. His eyes drooped as he struggled to hold them open. On what he assumed to be the second day of his captivity, the door cracked open again, only long enough for someone to shove a cup in and close the door again. Some of the water sloshed out, and Mash staggered to the door to retrieve his drink. He licked his cracked lips and slung the water into the back of his throat. It wasn't very much, and it tasted like metal, but it was the most satisfying thing that had passed his lips in a while. Mash lay on his back with outstretched limbs and stared at the ceiling. In the hopes that someone who could help him would hear him, he sang all the songs he knew in a loud, out-of-pitch tone. The second song in, Bushrell pounded at the wall next door, and Mash was glad for the company. The third song in, Mash began replacing the words of the chorus of a common Flowerantha folk song to suit his current situation. We are all united, our water is our life, land and sea together can overcome all strife. We are all going to die here, our water tastes like lye, Mash and Bush together, die, 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 die. At the fourth song, his mouth became parched again, and his fervent shouting diminished into plaintive whining. His lip trembled, and he bit it hard. Someone will come, he whispered. Knock it off, Mash, someone will come. He didn't bother getting up when the door rattled again. Instead, he continued staring at the rock pattern on the ceiling that resembled crumpled paper. Mash heard a voice coming from behind the door. Mash, Bushrell, are you in there? Beverly? His voice cracked. Mash, are you okay? Beverly, is that you? Yes, it's me. Mash, we only have one wish, said a woman's deep voice. Olivia was there too. We are going to get you out. Mash wanted to rise, but his muscles felt heavy. He pushed himself up to a sitting position with much effort, his eyes locked on the door. The lock clicked, and the door creaked open. Mash recognized a look of pity on Beverly's face when she saw him. His dark brown hair was matted and messy, his face was streaked with dirt, and what was left of his clothing was tattered into leafy rags. The place where Bushrell had slugged him had changed from angry purple to a less harsh blue and yellow as it healed. Beverly barreled down the stairs 2 at a time and knelt beside him. She lay a hand gently on his forearm. Olivia followed, and Maylin trailed behind. Olivia swung one of Mash's arms over her shoulder, and Beverly took the other arm. Mash croaked through dry, thin lips. Olivia, you have wings. White feathered wings, just like an arquesis, protruded from Olivia's shoulder blades and reached down to the back of her knees. Yes, you will see why soon. One slow step at a time, they were back in the dim hall. Bushrell's in there. Mash nodded at the door across from them. I figured as much, said Olivia. We do not have any more wishes. I might. Mash took a deep breath, as if the effort of speaking was taking every last ounce of energy he had. My wishes were not working in that room. I stopped trying. If yours worked, maybe mine will. He dropped his arm from Beverly's shoulders and held his hand out in front of him. I wish for the key to this door. The key took form, but it was almost transparent. It took another couple seconds for it to become solid in Mash's hand. Olivia reached for the key, but Mash said, I'll do it. I owe him more than one. He maneuvered the key into the lock. Who is there? Bushrell called from the inside. Footsteps raced to the door. Mash pushed the door open, and Bushrell stood right inside, facing them. He looked a little better off than Mash, but barely. His chin was still a little bruised, with a small scab where the sword's hilt had dug in. His bamboo vest was missing, and one of his sleeves on his blue shirt was ripped shorter than the other. He pushed back his dirty blonde hair, and the group outside of the door noticed his bruised hand. Maylin grabbed it. What happened? Bushrell squeezed her hand. Even with the dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep, his blue eyes remained clear and piercing. It was nothing. He scowled at Mash. Let us get out of here so that I can get home and never see his face again. They came to a ledge where the hallway dropped off into the open mouth of a cave. The sound of battle raged below them. The soldiers shouted and monster knights roared, and metal clanged against rock and thudded against scaly flesh. The 4 monster knights occupied much of the space in the cave. Although there were 100 soldiers, the monster knights overtook them with a swing of a tail or a stomp of a foot. The head monster knight, Scorso, was unmistakable with his inky black feathers, while the other 3 monster knights' feathers were subdued grays and rusty reds. In the center of the cave stood a cylindrical glass structure filled with water. A golden-haired merman hovered in the water behind the glass. Bushrell stood with his toes curled over the edge. What is going on? It looks like a war down there. Olivia joined him at the ledge and watched the scene. It is a rescue mission. That is why I could not join you on your quest. I was assembling the Landwalker army to rescue the king. He disappeared shortly after the visitors arrived, and we just found him in the cave, captured by the Monster Knights. As for rescuing you, I was in the right place at the right time, when Beverly and Maylin found me and asked for my help. How do we get down there? Asked Bushrell. Olivia, you cannot carry all of us. I will just have to take everyone down one at a time while my wings last, she said. Take us where? Asked Bushrell. Anywhere is better than that room, said Mash. Olivia wrapped her arms securely around Beverly. Wait, why am I first? Beverly tried to push Olivia's arms away, but Olivia only tightened her hold. You'll be okay, Beverly. I'll be right behind you, Mash said. With Beverly secured, Olivia stepped off the landing and into the chaos. We need to get down there, said Bushrell. I can wait, said Maylin. Yeah, Olivia will be right back, said Mash. No, we are both going now. I wish for wings. White wings with silver tips sprung out of the back of his shirt. The light reflecting off his wings, coupled with his golden locks and angular jawline, gave him an angelic appearance, even with all the dirt and grime. He walked toward Maylin with outstretched arms. You cannot carry me. You are too weak right now. Of course I can. Bushrell bent down, scooped her up with a grunt, and leaped off the ledge while tightening his grip. He sailed over the battleground, right to the mouth of the cave, and set Maylin down next to Beverly. Olivia crouched and leapt into the air as her wings beat to lift her back up to the landing. She soon returned with Mash. As Olivia set Mash on the ground, Bushrell spun on his heel and ran into the cave. Olivia also dashed into battle and disappeared. Mash, who had only been sitting for a second, said, You have got to be kidding me. He pushed himself up and limped after Bushrell. Mash, get back here, screamed Beverly. Mash ignored her and kept trying to run to catch up with Bushrell. When he did, he yelled, Bushrell, what are you doing? Bushrell shoved Mash out of the way. You are not wanted. I do not need your help. I am going to fight. Leave me alone. This is not your fight, Russet. Yes, it is. I live here too, Bushrell. If it's your fight, it's mine. Bushrell growled. Do whatever you want. Get yourself killed for all I care. Running into battle, he said, I wish for bow and arrows and armor. A shiny metal breastplate formed around him, leaving room for the wings that were still at his back. In one hand appeared a bow, and in the other was a fistful of arrows. He drew the bow, and the arrow plunged straight into the face of a monster knight. Mash went with the old standby of a set of knives, and stayed close enough to Bushrell to keep an eye on him, but far enough away so that he wouldn't get yelled at. As Mash looked away at an approaching monster knight, Bushrell disappeared. Mash searched for him and spotted him across the room near the tank, with King Mermano inside. The tank had been jostled during the battle, and a crack in it was leaking water. Mash pushed past soldiers and tripped over bodies. Scorso threw Bushrell against the glass tank with his tail, which cracked it even more. Scorso bared his razor-sharp teeth at Bushrell. Bushrell tried to move, but King Mermano's arms behind him came through the glass, which was now more the consistency of a sparkle sphere, and grabbed Bushrell by the upper arms, holding him back. That's the end of chapter 13. As you can see, the boys' luck has not turned around yet, so we'll have to wait and see what happens in chapter 14. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll stick around. Thanks.